The big room was full of different kinds of aliens. Some looked like tall glass people with bright colors inside them. Others had scaly skin like snakes but walked on two legs. There were beings made of light that floated in the air, and creatures with too many arms and eyes. They all sat in special chairs made for their different bodies. In the middle of the room stood a tall glass woman. Her name was Zarathik, and she came from a race called the Veltari. She was beautiful in a cold way, like ice that catches sunlight. When she spoke, her voice was like music, but the words were not kind. "So the humans want to join us," she said, and many aliens in the room made sounds that meant they thought it was funny. "They have been in space for only 200 years. That is nothing. Most of us have been traveling between stars for thousands of years." In one corner of the room sat the human group. There were only 5 of them. They looked very small next to all the big aliens around them. Captain Jake Morrison sat next to his wife Lyra. She was half human and half Veltari, which made this moment very hard for her. She could understand both sides, but she had chosen to live with humans. Jake was not a tall man, but he had steady eyes and strong hands. He had been a soldier for most of his life. He knew how to stay calm when people said bad things about him. Right now, he needed all of that training. "Look at their weapons," Zarathik continued. She waved her hand and pictures appeared in the air above everyone. The pictures showed human spaceships and guns. They still use bullets and missiles. They have not learned that energy shields make these old weapons useless. More aliens made. Laughing sounds. Some of them whispered to each other about how silly humans were. "Their ships fly in straight lines like boats on water," Zarathik said. "They do not understand that space has no up or down. They fight like they are still on their home planet, not in the dark between stars." The pictures changed to show human battle plans. The aliens looked at them like they were looking at drawings made by children. "But the funniest thing," Zarathik said, and her voice got more cruel, "is that they have rules about how to fight wars. They worry about people who are not soldiers. They try not to hurt too many enemies. They have something they call war crimes." She laughed, and it sounded like breaking glass. "How sweet. How innocent. They think war should be fair." Jake felt his wife's hand squeeze his arm. Lyra was angry and embarrassed. Her people were being very rude to the humans she now lived with. But Jake just squeezed her hand back. He kept his face calm and said nothing. "The Veltari Empire has fought wars that lasted hundreds of years," Zarathik went on. "We have turned whole star systems into dust when we needed to. We know that. To win a war, you must be willing to do anything. You cannot let soft feelings make you weak." She gestured to all the aliens in the room. "Every race here has learned this lesson, every race except the humans. They are too kind, too gentle, too worried about being nice. They will never be strong enough to sit with us." When she finished talking, most of the aliens made sounds that meant they agreed. They voted, and the humans lost. No one wanted them to join the Galactic Council. As the meeting ended, aliens began to leave. But Zarathik walked over to where the humans sat. She brought some of her advisors with her. She stopped in front of Jake and Lyra. "Captain Morrison," she said, looking down at Jake, "I find it interesting that my distant cousin chose to marry someone from such a weak race." Jake stood up slowly. Even standing, he was shorter than the tall alien woman. "Ma'am," he said politely, "tell me, Captain, what do you think of what I said about human fighting?" Jake thought for a moment. Other aliens had stopped leaving and were listening now. "I think you are probably right about most of it, ma'am." This surprised everyone. They had expected him to argue or get angry. "You agree that humans are weak fighters, in terms of technology and experience?" "Yes, ma'am. We have been in space for about as long as most species spend learning to read. Our weapons are simple. Our ways of fighting are basic. We do not know much about real space war." Zarathik smiled. It was not a nice smile. "How honest of you. Most races try to pretend they are stronger than they are." "However," Jake said, and something in his voice made everyone go quiet, "I think you are making one big mistake." "Oh, what mistake is that?" Jake looked right into her strange eyes. You think that not knowing things makes us weak. I think it might make us strong. The room was so quiet now that people could hear the air machines humming. You see, Ambassador, we do not know that energy shields make bullets useless. We do not know that space fighting cannot be like ship fighting on water. We do not know that having rules makes us lose wars. Jake's voice stayed calm but got stronger. Since we do not know these things are impossible, we might just do them anyway. Zarathika's smile got smaller. Captain, your hope is sweet, but the real world crushes such dreams. Maybe, Jake said, but I have learned something in my years as a soldier. The most dangerous enemy is not the one with the best weapons or the most experience. The most dangerous enemy is the one who does not know he is supposed to lose. He nodded politely to her and turned to leave. Lyra walked beside him. As they left, Zarathik watched them go. Her face showed she was thinking about something that puzzled her. Admiral Kethfer, she said to one of her advisors, maybe we should watch the humans. Not because they are dangerous, but because when they fail, it might teach us something. None of them saw the small recording device that Lyra wore on her uniform. They did not know that Jake's words were already being sent to every human ship in that part of space. As Jake and Lyra walked through the long halls of the space station, other humans fell in step with them. No one spoke, but everyone was thinking the same thing. They had been told they were too weak to matter. They had been laughed at and dismissed, but Jake Morrison had just told the most powerful beings in the galaxy something important. Humans did not know they were supposed to lose. And sometimes, not knowing the rules was the best way to win. Outside the space station, human ships waited in the dark. On each ship, crews listened to the recording of what had happened in the meeting. They heard their captain's words and they understood. The galaxy had rules. Ancient rules made by ancient races who had been fighting each other for thousands of years. These rules said that young races like humans should be quiet and obedient. They should accept that older races knew better, but humans had different ideas about rules. They believed that rules could be changed. They believed that just because something had always been done one way did not mean it had to stay that way forever. In the days that followed, human ships began to move through space with new purpose. They carried Jake Morrison's message to every human colony, every human station, every human family trying to make a life among the stars. The message was simple. We do not know we are supposed to lose, and across human space, people began to prepare for the day when they would prove that sometimes the most powerful weapon was not knowing you were supposed to be afraid. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council said no to the humans. During that time, things had been quiet, too quiet. Jake Morrison had a bad feeling that the quiet was about to end. He stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Defiant. It was not a big ship compared to what the aliens had, but it was one of the best ships humans could build. Through the front window, he could see a planet called New Eden. It looked like a blue and green jewel floating in the black of space. 2 million humans lived on New Eden. They had farms and cities and schools. They had children who played in parks and adults who worked hard to build a good life. None of them knew that their world was about to become the center of a very big problem. "Sir," said Lieutenant Amy Chun from her station, "we are getting a message from the Veltari fleet. They want all humans to leave New Eden in 3 days." Jake was not surprised, but his heart still sank. What do they say is their reason? They claim the planet belongs to them now. They found special crystals in the ground that are worth a lot of money. Since no government owns the planet officially, they say they can take it. Jake's wife Lyra looked up from her workstation. She was the ship's second in command. "Jake, my people are not usually cruel, but they are very determined. If they want this planet, they will take it." "What about the star?" Jake asked. The star were the snake-like aliens who hated the Veltari. "Our long-distance sensors show lots of starships moving this way too," said Ensign Peter Walsh. "At least 40 ships, maybe more." Jake looked at the tactical screen. It showed his one small ship and 2 cargo ships that were helping move people off the planet. Against either alien fleet, They would not last 5 minutes in a real fight. "Sir," Amy said, and her voice was tight with worry, "Admiral Harrison wants to talk to you right now." The main screen changed to show Admiral Patricia Harrison. She was the commander of Earth's Third Fleet. Her face looked tired and stressed. "Jake, listen carefully. Our spies think both the Veltari and Star are planning to claim New Eden at the same time. If they start fighting each other with our people on the ground, it becomes a three-way war with civilians in the middle," Jake finished. "Exactly. The nearest Earth battle group is 6 days away at best. I am ordering you to start moving all people off the planet immediately. Admiral, with respect, 2 million people cannot be moved in 3 days. We do not have enough ships, even if we had enough time." Admiral Harrison's face got harder. "Then you move who you can and leave the rest to hope the aliens show mercy." The communication ended. The bridge was very quiet. Jake stared at the tactical screen, thinking through every possible plan. Every normal approach led to the same result: lots of dead civilians and another proof that humans could not protect themselves in the galaxy. "Captain," Lyra said quietly, "there might be another way." Jake turned to his wife. He could tell she was choosing her words very carefully. "Tell me." "The Veltari and Scar have hated each other for 300 years. They hate each other more than they want money. If they found each other in this star system, they would fight each other instead of focusing on us," Jake said, understanding. "But that still leaves New Eden in the middle of a war zone." "Not necessarily." Lyra moved to the tactical station and started typing commands. "Both fleets will come from opposite directions, so the other cannot see them coming. The Veltari will come from the north side of the system. The Star will come from the south. New Eden sits almost perfectly between their approach paths." Jake studied the picture she had made. "You're saying we somehow control when they meet each other. More than that." Lyra's fingers moved over the controls, adding new things to the display. "Both species have strict rules when they face each other. First contact protocols, demands for surrender, formal declarations. The whole process takes about 4 hours. 4 hours of talking before they actually start shooting. During that time, both fleets will be in non-combat mode. Their shields will be down, their weapons will be powered off, and they will be paying attention only to each other." Jake began to see what his wife was thinking. And a small, harmless human ship might go completely unnoticed. "The Defiant is not armed for ship-to-ship combat against either fleet," Lyra continued, "but we do have something they do not expect." She brought up the ship's technical information, highlighting some changes that had been made during their last repair. Jake smiled grimly as he understood what she meant. "Mining charges," he said. "We are carrying enough explosives to hollow out an asteroid. Or disable 2 fleets if we place them right." Lyra met his eyes. "It is completely crazy by any normal military thinking." "But we are not normal military thinkers," Jake replied, remembering his words from the council chamber. "We are humans who do not know we are supposed to lose." He turned to talk to his bridge crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to try something that will either save New Eden or get us all killed in the most spectacular way possible. Anyone who wants to transfer to the evacuation ships has 5 minutes to decide." Not one person on the crew moved. "In that case," Jake said, sitting down in his command chair, "let us go change the rules of the game." The Defiant began to prepare for something that had never been tried before in the history of space warfare. They were going to use mining equipment to take on 2 of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. In his private ready room, Jake called a meeting with his senior officers. Lyra, Amy, Peter, and Lieutenant Rodriguez, the tactical officer, gathered around the small table. "This plan depends on perfect timing and a lot of luck," Jake said. "But it also depends on us doing things that no military academy would ever teach." "What do you mean, sir?" Rodriguez asked. "We are going to attack during a peace talk. We are going to target non-military systems. We are going to use industrial tools as weapons. By galactic law, what we are planning is probably illegal." Jake looked at each of his officers. "But we are not fighting for galactic law. We are fighting for 2 million human lives. Sometimes when the rules are made to make sure you lose, the only way to win is to make new rules. Sir, Amy said, what if other humans think what we are doing is wrong? Then they can court-martial me when this is over, Jake replied. But right now, those people on New Eden do not have the luxury of following rules that were written by people who think humans do not matter. Lieutenant Rodriguez spoke up. Captain, I had been thinking about the technical side of this. Mining charges are not designed to destroy ships. They are designed to break apart rock and metal in specific ways. Go on, if we place them on the right systems, we can disable their ships without killing the crews. No power, no communications, no engines, but the life support will still work. They will be stuck but alive. Jake nodded. That is exactly what we want. Dead aliens become martyrs and start bigger wars. Embarrassed aliens just get angry and make mistakes. Over the next hour, they worked out the details. The Defiant would approach both fleets while they were focused on their formal confrontation. Using stealth modifications and careful timing, they would attach mining charges to the most important ships in both fleets. Remember, Jake told his crew as they prepared, we are not trying to win a battle. We are trying to prevent a war. Our job is to make both sides realize that fighting here will cost them more than they can afford to pay. The crew worked with quiet efficiency, checking systems and preparing equipment. They all understood that they were about to attempt something unprecedented. A single small human ship was going to take on 2 alien fleets using nothing but creativity, courage, and mining explosives. Sir, Peter reported from the sensor station, both alien fleets are approaching the system. ETA for the Veltari is 18 hours. ETA for the Star is 20 hours. Perfect, Jake said. That gives us time to get into position and review our plan one more time. As the Defiant began its approach to the staging area, Jake thought about the conversation he had had with Ambassador Zarathic 3 months ago. She had mocked humans for not understanding the rules of galactic warfare. Soon, she was going to learn that humans understood the rules just fine. They simply chose to ignore them when the rules were stupid. The most dangerous enemy, Jake had told her, was the one who did not know he was supposed to lose. In a few hours, 2 of the galaxy's most powerful fleets were going to discover just how dangerous that could be. The Veltari fleet appeared in space like 17 burning stars. Their ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Each one was shaped like a crystal cathedral with energy fields that made rainbow colors around them. They moved together. Like dancers, never breaking formation, Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, the eternal glory. He was tall even for a Veltari, with crystal skin that caught the light and threw it back in sharp angles. He looked at the planet New Eden spinning below them and felt satisfied. The humans would learn that they could not simply take what belonged to superior races. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, we are detecting large numbers of star ships in the outer system. At least 40 vessels, possibly more. Kethver's satisfaction turned to cold anger. The star were like giant snakes that walked on 2 legs. They had been enemies of the Veltari for 300 years. Every war between them had been brutal and long. Those reptilian thieves, Kethver said through clenched teeth. They think they can steal what is rightfully ours. Order, sir? Signal. The fleet, battle formation Beta 7. And send a message to the Star Commander. Tell them to leave immediately or face destruction. On the other side of the star system, Fleet Leader VS's car received the Veltari message. He was a massive star with scales that looked like black metal and eyes like yellow fire. When he read the message, he made the hissing sound that passed for laughter among his people. Arrogant crystal-spawned fools, the Scar said to his bridge crew. Send reply, we claim this system by right of discovery. Withdraw or be destroyed. The Starfleet looked very different from the Veltari ships. Where the crystal ships were beautiful, the star vessels were purely functional. They looked like weapons that could fly through space, all sharp angles and heavy armor. 43 ships arranged themselves in attack formation, ready to turn. Planets in the glass dot between these 2 mighty fleets, New Eden continued to turn on its axis. The 2 million humans on the surface had no idea that their fate was being decided by forces they could barely understand. Hidden in the shadow of New Eden's smaller moon, the human ship Defiant waited. Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair, watching the two alien fleets prepare for war. His ship was running on minimum power, trying to look like a piece of space junk. Both fleets are following standard first contact protocols, Lyra reported from her sensor station. The Veltari have sent a formal challenge. The Star have responded with their own challenge. According to the old treaties, they will spend the next 3 hours exchanging threats before anyone can fire a shot. Perfect timing, Jake said. Lieutenant Rodriguez, what is the status of our mining charges? All 24 charges are ready, sir. They are loaded into our torpedo tubes and set for magnetic attachment. Once they stick to an enemy ship, we can trigger them with a remote signal up to 50,000 kilometers away. And our stealth modifications? The experimental coding is working. As long as we keep power low and avoid direct sensor scans, both fleets should read us as debris. Jake activated the ship's communication system to talk to his entire crew. All hands, this is the captain. In 30 minutes, we are going to try something that has never been done before in galactic history. We are going to disable 2 enemy fleets using nothing but mining equipment and surprise. He paused, thinking about what he was asking his people to do. What we are about to do breaks every rule of space combat. We are going to attack during a formal peace talk. We are going to target non-military systems. We are going to use civilian equipment as weapons. By galactic standards, we are about to commit what they would call war crimes. Another pause, longer this time. But we were not fighting for the galactic community. We are fighting for 2 million human lives. We are fighting for the right of our species to exist without asking permission from people who think we are inferior. Sometimes when the rules are designed to make you lose, the only way to win is to change the game completely. Jake waited to see if anyone would leave. No one moved. Very well, all stations, prepare for Operation Longshot. The Defiant began its slow approach toward the 2 fleets. To any observer, it looked exactly like what it was supposed to be. A small human ship trying to avoid notice while helping evacuate civilians. Sir, Ensign Walsh reported, both fleets have begun their formal exchange. The Veltari are demanding territorial rights based on Article 12 of the Commerce Code. The Star are countering with claims based on right of first discovery. How long until they finish the formalities and start shooting? Based on historical records, about 2 hours and 40 minutes, Jake smiled grimly. Then we have 2 hours to get into position and 30 minutes to plant our surprises before they start killing each other instead of noticing us. The human ship continued its approach, unnoticed and unremarkable. In its torpedo tubes, it carried the means to humble 2 of the galaxy's most feared fleets. They were about to employ the most human strategy possible. If you cannot win by the rules, make new ones. Beginning final approach, reported the pilot. Time to optimal position, 90 minutes. Jake settled back in his command chair. On the main screen, he could see both alien fleets. The Veltari ships looked like floating artwork, all curves and light. The star vessels looked like flying weapons, built only for destruction. Both fleets were so powerful that either one could have conquered Earth without breaking a sweat, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that humans would follow the same rules everyone else followed. They had assumed that humans would be predictable. Distance to Veltari. Fleet? Jake asked. 48,000 kilometers in closing, Rodriguez replied. We are now within range for charge deployment. Starfleet? 50,000 kilometers. Still approaching optimal range. Jake studied the tactical display. Both fleets had arranged themselves in perfect military formations. The Veltari ships hung in space like a crystal cathedral, their energy shields creating a faint rainbow effect around each vessel. The star formation looked like a striking snake, with their ships arranged in a curved line that would let them focus all their firepower on a single target. Sir, Amy reported, Both fleets are entering the final phase of their formal exchange. Admiral Kethfer is giving what sounds like a complete history lesson about Veltari territorial claims, going back 4 centuries. How much longer before weapons are free? The Scar response will take about 20 minutes. After that, the shooting starts. Jake nodded. The timing would be close, but it was workable. Lieutenant Rodriguez, begin deployment sequence. Target. The Veltari command ship first, then work through their capital ships. I want charges on their main power systems and communication arrays. Yes, sir. Charges 1 through 12, configured for magnetic attachment and remote detonation. The Defiant's torpedo tubes began their silent work. Mining charges launched on carefully calculated paths that would bring them into contact with the Veltari ships. Each charge was designed to stick to a ship's hull and wait until activated. To enemy sensors, they would look like floating debris. Charges 1 through 6 are away, Rodriguez reported. All showing successful attachment. Starfleet is now at optimal range, Welsh added. 49,000 kilometers. Deploy charges 7 through 24 on the Starfleet. Same targeting priorities. Jake watched tiny dots on the tactical display as their mining charges moved slowly toward their targets. Each charge had enough explosive power to crack open an asteroid. Against military starships, they would serve a different purpose. They would not destroy the ships, but they would make them helpless. Sir, Lyra said, successful attachment on all Veltari targets. The charges are positioned on primary power systems, communication arrays, and shield generators. Star deployment. Complete, Rodriguez confirmed. All charges attached and ready for remote activation. Jake felt a moment of calm settle over him. They had done it. 24 mining charges now clung to the hulls of the 2 most powerful fleets in this part of the galaxy. Neither fleet knew. They were there. The most human strategy was about to be tested. Surprise the enemy by doing something so crazy that no one would ever think to defend against it. The Defiant floated in space between the 2 massive alien fleets like a tiny fish swimming between whales. On the bridge, every crew member knew they were now close enough that either fleet could destroy them in seconds. One wrong move, one active sensor scan, and their ship would be turned into glowing gas. Distance to the Veltari fleet? Jake asked quietly. 47,000 kilometers, Lieutenant Rodriguez answered. All our charges are attached and ready. Starfleet? 51,000 kilometers? All charges there are ready too. Jake looked at the tactical screen. Both alien fleets hung in space in perfect battle formations. The Veltari ships glowed with soft rainbow light from their energy shields. The starships looked like black daggers ready to strike. Neither fleet knew that human mining charges were now stuck to their hulls like invisible bombs. Sir, Amy Chun said from communications, both fleets are finishing their formal talks. Admiral Kethfer is giving his final demand for surrender. How much time left? The Star will give their final answer in about 20 minutes. After that, weapons go hot, Jake nodded. Perfect timing. Lieutenant Rodriguez, are all charges ready for detonation? Yes, sir. I can trigger them all at once or in groups. Each charge is positioned on critical systems, power relays, communication, arrays, shield generators. Jake turned to his communications officer. Amy, open a channel to both fleet commanders, full broadcast, all frequencies. Amy looked surprised. Sir, both fleets at the same time? Both fleets. It is time to introduce ourselves. The main screen split to show 2 alien faces. On the left was Admiral Kethfer, tall and crystalline with faceted eyes that reflected light. On the right was Fleet Leader Scar, massive and reptilian with yellow eyes that burned like fire. Both commanders looked shocked that a human ship had interrupted their private conversation. Greetings, Jake said in his calm, professional voice. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiant. I believe we need to talk. Human! Kethfer's voice was full of surprise and anger. How dare you interrupt formal fleet negotiations? You will withdraw immediately, or we will destroy your pathetic ship. Or what? Jake interrupted calmly. You will blow up my ship? That is certainly something you can do, Admiral. But before you try, you might want to check your sensor readings very carefully. On both screens, the alien commanders began giving orders to their crews. Jake waited patiently as their people conducted increasingly frantic scans of their own ships. I see. Nothing unusual, Scar hissed. What trick is this, human? No trick, Jake replied. Just a demonstration of human creativity. You see, while you were busy with your formal protocols, my ship attached mining charges to every capital ship in both fleets. The silence that followed was complete. Impossible, Kethfer said finally. Our sensors would have detected any approach, would they? You were rather focused on each other. And human stealth technology, while primitive by your standards, apparently has some unexpected advantages. Jake leaned forward slightly. Now, let me be very clear about our situation. Those charges are not powerful enough to destroy your ships, but they will disable them completely. No shields, no communications, no engines. You will be sitting ducks for about 6 hours while your repair crews try to fix the damage. What do you want? Viscar demanded. I want you both to leave this star system, immediately, permanently. Both. Alien commanders began shouting at once. Their protests mixed together in a storm of outrage and threats. Jake waited for them to exhaust themselves before continuing. You are probably wondering if I am lying, he said calmly. That is a fair question. After all, no one has ever been foolish enough to attack two major fleets at the same time using mining equipment. He paused to let that sink in. But here is what you need to understand about humans. We do not know that what we are doing is impossible. We do not know that we are supposed to lose. And we really do not care about your rules when our people are in danger. Jake's voice got harder. So here's my offer. You have 30 seconds to begin leaving this system. If either fleet makes any aggressive move toward New Eden, toward my ship, or toward each other, I will detonate every charge at the same time. You will both be left helpless while I call in the rest of the human fleet to clean up the mess. You would not dare, Kethfer said, but his voice shook slightly. Would I not? Jake smiled without humor. Admiral, 3 months ago your ambassador stood before the Galactic Council and explained why humans could never be a threat to established powers. She said we were too bound by rules, too concerned with morality, too naive to do what was necessary. He leaned back in his command chair. She was wrong. We are not bound by your rules, we make our own. A countdown timer appeared on Jake's tactical display. 20 seconds. Both alien commanders were talking rapidly to their officers. Jake could see they were torn between pride and common sense. Their entire military careers had been built on the idea that they were superior to younger races like humans. 10 seconds. The timer kept counting down. Jake's finger hovered over the detonation control. Every person on his bridge held their breath. Wait, Kethfer's voice cracked. You are asking us to abandon legitimate territorial claims based on a terrorist threat. 5 seconds. I agree to withdrawal, Scar said quickly. The Scar fleet will leave immediately. 4 seconds. The Veltari fleet will also withdraw, Kethfer said. His voice was tight with barely controlled rage. Jake smiled. Thank you, gentlemen. You have 1 hour to clear the system boundary. And Admiral Kethfer, please give my regards to Ambassador Zarathic. Tell her that her human problem just got significantly more complicated. As both alien fleets began turning away from New Eden, Jake turned to his crew. Well done, everyone. We just taught the galaxy a new rule. Never underestimate the species that does not know it is supposed to lose. The bridge crew erupted in quiet cheers and congratulations. They had done something impossible. A single human ship had forced two of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy to retreat using nothing but mining charges and pure audacity. Sir, Lyra said from her station, both fleets are beginning their withdrawal. The Veltari are moving toward the north boundary, the star. Toward the south. Any signs of treachery? Negative. Both fleets appear to be genuinely leaving, Jake nodded, but he did not relax yet. Keep monitoring them until they are completely out of sensor range. And keep those charges armed until then. Over the next hour, the two alien fleets slowly moved away from New Eden. The Veltari ships, still beautiful despite their humiliation, disappeared into hyperspace one by one. The star vessels, looking like defeated predators, followed suit from the opposite direction. "Sir," Amy reported, "final starship has jumped to hyperspace. Both fleets are gone. Outstanding. Lieutenant Rodriguez, disarm and recover all mining charges." "Sir, the charges are too far away to recover. They will detach automatically in 24 hours and burn up in the nearest star." Jake accepted. The charges had served their purpose. "Communications, open a channel to New Eden." The screen showed Governor Linda Park, the elected leader of the human colony. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and worried eyes. "Captain Morrison," she said, "our sensors showed massive alien fleets approaching. Then they just left. What happened?" "Nothing much, Governor. Just a little diplomatic conversation. The alien fleets have decided they are not interested in this system after all." Governor Park stared at him. "Captain, there were over 60 alien warships out there. How did one human frigate convince them to leave?" Jake smiled. "We reminded them that humans do not always follow the same rules as everyone else." As the communication ended, Jake thought about what they had accomplished. They had not just saved New Eden, they had proven something much more important. They had shown that human creativity and determination could overcome superior technology in numbers, but more than that, they had sent a message to the entire galaxy. Humans might be young and weak by galactic standards, but they were also unpredictable and dangerous. They did not know they were supposed to lose, which made them capable of things that no one expected. "Helm," Jake said, "set course for New Eden orbit. I think the colonists would like to know they are safe." As the Defiant moved toward the human world, Jake realized that everything had changed. The galaxy had seen what humans could do when they stopped following other people's rules and started making their own. The game had changed, and humanity had just won the first round. 6 months after the New Eden incident, the Galactic Council chamber was busier than it had been in decades. Representatives from all 17 member species had gathered for an emergency meeting. For the first time in Council history, they were not talking about territory, trade wars, or ancient grudges. They were talking about humans. Ambassador Zarathic stood at the central podium. But she looked very different than she had 6 months ago. Her usual confidence was gone. The crystal features that had once shown superiority now showed something close to worry. "The human situation has grown beyond what we first expected," she announced to the gathering. "What started as one incident at New Eden has become a systematic problem for established galactic order." The main display turned on, showing a star map of the local area. Red markers showed recent conflicts, each one labeled with details that would have seemed impossible just months before. "The mining colony incident at Kepler 442, Zarathic continued, where a single human cruiser disabled an entire Zephyrian raiding fleet using improvised electromagnetic weapons made from their own reactor cores. Murmurs went through the assembly. The Zephyrians were famous for their hit-and-run attacks. No one had successfully stopped them in over a century. The cargo protection at Ross 128, where human merchant ships somehow convinced 3 different pirate groups to attack each other instead of the convoy they were trying to rob. The diplomatic success at the Trappist negotiations, where human mediators got Veltari and Star factions to sign a peace treaty after 6 centuries of war. With each example, the aliens in the assembly became more restless. These were not the actions of a primitive species stumbling through galactic politics. These were the careful moves of a civilization that had learned to use unpredictability as a weapon. "Most concerning," Zarathic said, her voice dropping to show how serious this was, "is their response to our attempts to contain them diplomatically." The display changed to show communication records, trade agreements, and military pacts. A web of connections spread across the star map, with Earth at the center. They have created what they call the Independence Coalition. 15 non-council species have formally joined with human leadership. They offer technology sharing, mutual defense agreements, and something they call economic partnership to any species willing to work outside traditional council authority. Admiral Kethver stood up from the Veltari section. The humans have turned our own principles against us. They offer the same benefits as council membership, but without the restrictions or the need to submit to our authority. They are creating an alternative power structure, added Representative Sharon, of the Star. One that threatens the stability we have maintained for thousands of years, Zarathik nodded grimly. Which brings us to today's decision. The Council must choose. Do we try to destroy this human alliance before it grows too large to stop, or do we change our own approach to match their innovations? The debate that followed was unlike any in Council history. For centuries, discussions had followed established rules, with each species arguing from positions set by tradition and precedent. But humanity had introduced something new into galactic politics, the idea that rules could be changed rather than simply followed. During a break in the formal meeting, Zarathik was approached by an unexpected visitor. Captain Jake Morrison entered the diplomatic lounge with the quiet confidence that had become his signature. His wife Lara walked beside him, along with a small group of human representatives. "Ambassador," Jake said with a respectful nod. "I hope you do not mind the interruption, Captain Morrison." Zarathik's voice carried complex emotions. "I must admit, I did not expect to see you here. We received invitations from several council members. Apparently there is some interest in direct dialogue." Indeed. She studied the human who had become the center of so much galactic upheaval. "You have certainly exceeded our initial assessments of your species' capabilities." Jake smiled. "We had some help. It turns out, when you tell someone they are too weak to matter, they have two choices: accept it or prove you wrong. And you chose the latter. We chose to survive. Everything else just followed from that decision." Zarathik was quiet for a moment, thinking carefully about her words. "The Council is debating whether to classify humanity as a threat requiring elimination." "That is their choice," Jake replied calmly. "But they should probably consider the consequences carefully." "You believe you could resist the combined might of the Council species?" "Ambassador, 6 months ago you did not think we could resist a single fleet. 3 months ago you did not think we could form meaningful alliances. Last month, you did not think we could mediate peace between your people and the Skuktar." Jake's expression remained pleasant, but his words carried an unmistakable edge. "Maybe the question is not whether we could resist you. Maybe the question is whether you can afford to find out what else we are capable of." Before Zarathik could respond, Lyra stepped forward. "Cousin," she said, using the formal address that acknowledged their species' relationship. "May I suggest a different perspective, please? The Council has spent centuries managing a galaxy where power was distributed among known quantities. 17 species, each with established capabilities, traditional territories, and predictable responses. It was stable, but it was also stagnant." Lyra gestured toward the chamber where the Council continued its debates. "Humanity did not just challenge your authority. We demonstrated that the galaxy was capable of change, growth, innovation. We proved that there were possibilities you had not considered." "Change can be dangerous," Zarathik replied. "So can stagnation." Jake added, "Look at your star maps, Ambassador. How much of the galaxy remains unexplored because the Council species have spent centuries fighting over the same systems? How many problems remain unsolved because everyone was too committed to traditional approaches to try new solutions?" Zarathik found herself considering the human's words despite her instincts. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Partnership," Jake said simply. "Not membership in your council, not submission to your authority. Partnership between equals, each contributing what they do best. The council species bring stability, experience, established infrastructure," Lyra continued. "Humanity brings innovation, adaptability, and a willingness to try approaches that others consider impossible. And if the council refuses? Jake's smile never changed. Then we continue building our own alliances, exploring our own territories, and solving our own problems. The galaxy is large enough for both approaches. As the formal session resumed, Zarathik found herself watching the human delegation with new understanding. They had achieved something unprecedented. They had changed the fundamental nature of galactic politics not through conquest or superior technology, but by refusing to accept that the existing rules were permanent. The final vote was closer than anyone had expected. The motion to classify humanity as a threat requiring elimination failed by a single vote. The alternative motion, to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Independence Coalition, passed by the same narrow margin. As the session ended, and representatives began leaving, Zarathik approached the human delegation one final time. "Captain Morrison," she said, "you have succeeded in something I would have thought impossible." "What is that?" "You have forced the Council to evolve. Whether that proves beneficial or catastrophic remains to be seen." Jake extended his hand in. The human gesture of greeting and respect. After a moment's hesitation, Zarathik accepted it. "Ambassador," he said, "welcome to the new game." Outside the council chamber, the galaxy continued its ancient dance around countless stars. But something fundamental had changed. The rules that had governed galactic civilization for thousands of years had been challenged, modified, and ultimately transformed by a species that had refused to accept that they were too weak to matter. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had done something far more profound. They had taught it that conquest was not the only path to power, that strength could come from cooperation as easily as domination, and that sometimes the most revolutionary act was simply refusing to play by rules designed to ensure your defeat. 1 year later, the human colony ship New Horizon left Earth orbit, bound for the Andromeda Galaxy. Its mission, to establish humanity's first intergalactic settlement, supported by a coalition of 47 species who had learned that the universe was larger and more full of possibilities than they had ever imagined. In the ship's command center, Captain Lisa Park reviewed the mission parameters one final time. The journey would take 3 centuries, even with enhanced faster-than-light drives provided by their council partners. Most of the crew would spend the voyage in suspended animation, awakening to find themselves in a galaxy where no rules had yet been written. "Captain," her first officer reported, "final systems check complete. All Coalition observers report ready for departure." "Very well, Helm, take us out." As the New Horizon engaged its drives and began its long journey into the unknown, those who remained behind continued building a galaxy where cooperation had replaced conquest, where innovation was valued over tradition, and where the impossible was simply another word for not yet attempted.